Hey friends, thank you so very much for tuning in to my backup channel. There's a reason why this video is being posted to my backup channel. It's an interview with Adam Green from No More News, and it covers some dynamic topics that, given YouTube's very opaque and hard to understand community guidelines, could very easily lead to yet another strike on my channel. So I'm posting this interview to the backup channel, and I want to all let you know that this interview is in part being brought to you by our friends over at Trade Genius. Now, Trade Genius has some cool technology to help normal folks make money in the stock market, and they have programs that will tell you when to buy and when to sell. They're nearly right 70% of the time and gain 2% a week on the names they trade. So you may want to look into this. They even have software programs that you can load onto your computer that can help you make even more money. And right now, until the end of the month, they're giving my listeners summer discounts on trading packages that include education, trading software, personal coaching, and buy-sell trade alerts at tradelikeagenius.com. Please check them out and you'll save over 50% with these bundles. And of course, the link to tradelikeagenius.com is just below this video. And so now, without further ado, I want to bring on Adam Green. And guys, this conversation is going to be framed around my belief that Donald Trump sitting in the White House is far, far, far and away, like thank our lucky stars, better than if the Wicked Witch of the North, South, East, and West, Hillary Clinton, was in the White House. And I just don't understand why our detractors continue to say that Hillary and Donald Trump are two different sides of the same coin. So let's begin the conversation about Q, Donald Trump, and Zionism. And guys, one final note, this interview was recorded before YouTube terminated my channel, and of course before they brought it back online. And by the way, to those of you who are really truly sick in the head and believe that I took my own YouTube channel down and brought it back to garner sympathy or credibility, many of you people are either delusional or you're part of some Cass Sunstein COINTELPRO operation, which we actually discuss in this video. Adam, how are you? Thanks for coming back on.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Sean. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thanks, man. Well, all right. I was recently on your show, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and, you talk about Jewish supremacy and Zionism. I talk frequently about Zionism, and it was a conversation that I think went fairly well, probably went a little bit too long, but I got taken to the woodshed by a lot of your commenters in your comment section. Very, very caustic, a caustic audience, which I think makes discourse very difficult. And about 90% of the comments were very negative, including one from somebody who says, "I hate SGTreport." And you and I have gotten to know each other quite well over time, I think. And I think that you know that I'm a real person who speaks truth, and I think you're a real person who speaks truth, and we're both trying to get to the core of the matter. Why do you suppose the comments are so caustic over on your site, a site that I like, a YouTube channel that I like?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just my side. I see it all over the internet. I've been a comment reader for years and years. Before I started making video, I would vent my views and argue with people in the comments online. So I think it's always been bad. And, some of the most extreme stuff very well could be Cass Sunstein cognitive infiltration bots or the JTrig. The 4Ds, it was the slide that Edward Snowden leaked. That's what they're doing to mess us up online, and this COINTELPRO infighting stuff. But yeah, the comments are terrible. They're terrible against me too. They can lie, say whatever they want. I say this often, is if stuff's like outrageous and there's people who are just crapping all over and lying, I will block them, and I make no bones about it. I don't have time to deal with liars like that. We get censored by the mainstream media. I get censored when I post on other people's stuff when it's factual information that they don't want to hear. So they're rough. There's a lot of people that are really skeptical of Q. So it's kind of a divisive issue in our current landscape. So there's going to be opinionated people on both sides.
Right. Well, I think one of the issues, you mentioned Q, I think the other issue is that, and I got an email from somebody whose name I'm not going to mention here, and he ironically in this latest email he sent me, he says, since Adam Green at No More News channel was respectful enough to interview you, why don't you return the favor, ... Didn't I reach out to you first? And I think I had you on my show first. Isn't that the way it went? Okay, so
yeah, I've been really clear. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I like how people don't understand the history even of our relationship, and love to just throw stones all day. And I just think, again, it's not helpful to discourse. So you and I had a plan to do this interview a while back, and so here we're doing another interview, and I'm happy to talk about these topics, but again, I just think it's very puzzling. This same person sent me an email the other day saying, Trump versus Clinton, two heads of the same snake. It's a big club. We ain't in it. One big psyop on the American people. Trump is not representing the best interests of the Americans. Israel first, America last. This is why SGTreport channel is so critical, with viewer and subscribership huge and tremendously impacting shaping truth seekers' mindsets and attitudes. Still, this type of shill cheerleader reporting is doing a disservice to especially those newbie truthers. So this person wants me to disparage Trump all day long as being a Zionist in the pocket of the Jews, when I want your opinion on what just happened here with him meeting with Putin. Brennan comes out and calls him a traitor. And there's no better example of a deep state traitor than former CIA director John Brennan. The entire media apparatus comes out against Trump, calling him a traitor. Do you think it was good that he's having a dialogue with Putin, or do you think that's a bad thing? And I think you'd probably agree with me. It's not a bad thing.
No, I think everybody should have a dialogue with everybody. So this, it's so hypocritical. When Obama reached out to Cuba, everybody got mad about that. And I know people could say it could be apples and oranges, but I like Trump talking to North Korea. I like Trump talking to Putin. But one thing I do want to say is you mentioned the Russian collusion, and I do see some evidence of Russian collusion, but not necessarily Russian collusion, more like Israel Chabad collusion, like the Felix Sater connection, where he wrote the email in the New York Times to Michael Cohen about getting Trump in office, and also the Steve Bannon connections to the Mercers and Cambridge Analytica, and Jared Kushner. There's a Forbes article with Jared Kushner on the cover saying this man got Trump elected, and it was through advanced technology and algorithms and stuff that they were able to, do all this collecting of data and then really crunch the numbers and then have Trump go to the right places, say the right things. And there's a whole bunch of articles that are out recently actually showing that the Mueller investigation is actually getting into Israeli collusion. And I believe not Roger Stone, but Oliver Stone said something similar about that. And remember, Putin also said that who's to say that it was Russians? It could have been Jews that were meddling in the election. And so the Intercept, Trump's transition team, colluded with Israel. Why isn't that news? Haaretz analysis, the countless Israeli connections to Mueller's probe of Trump and Russia. Observer.com, which is interesting. It used to be Kushner's magazine, and it says Mueller finally starts to target Trump's Israeli ties.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's never going to be reported by the Mockingbird mainstream media. So
let me finish one part on the Mueller.
No, please do. But we started
one more part, and then go ahead.
We started with Russiagate, and here we're already on Israel, and it's never going to be reported by the mainstream media.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that it's interesting that it's Mueller in here doing this investigation with all the focus being on Russia. When let's remember that Mueller was at the FBI right after 9/11 doing that investigation. So as far as I'm concerned, Mueller is a cover-up artist, and this is just another investigation like the JFK investigation or 9/11, all of them. It's a whitewash.
All right, so here's the thing. You know as well as I do, and anybody that doesn't understand who I am or what I stand for hasn't watched my 1,000 videos. Who's got the time, right? But if you've been following me for 8 to 10 years, you know that I've always said we've got a huge problem with dual citizens of Israel at the highest levels of our government, involved on 9/11, involved in the cover-up of 9/11. AIPAC's a problem. The ADL's a problem. The SPLC's a problem. I think now a lot of these congressional critters are supposed to take a pledge of allegiance to Israel. I talk about these things. But
you do.
These people, these trolls, the 90% who hated me so much for having the audacity to come on your show and express my views, and that was, by the way, the whole purpose of me coming on. I wanted to talk about what I see as COINTELPRO. And you mentioned Cass Sunstein. That's what I think is going on here. I don't think what we're seeing is designed to foster discourse. I think it's designed to foster fear so that it prevents discourse. Because again, I don't think I'm ever coming back on your show again because I don't want to take the abuse from your audience, right? How is that helpful to the cause of discourse and getting to the truth?
Well, yeah, I've been really clear. I've been talking with, a lot of people have wanted to talk to me since you come on about Q and give their take on the interview and what they think of Q. And I've been very clear to tell everybody that I don't think you're a shill, because it is true. You reached out to me first after you saw one of my videos about temple prophecy and Alex Jones. You said, "Hey, Adam, come on. Let's play the clips of Alex Jones being a Zionist shill. Let's talk about the temple stuff." Would a Zionist shill have me on when I know I'm 100% legit to talk about all these things? And then would you want to come on my show when you know I disagree with Q to have a debate and put yourself out there in front of a bunch of people who are going to be skeptical and oppose what you're saying? So I can understand the frustration and how it would upset you. You've worked hard for so many years, and people are saying you're a controlled opposition shill. And people say the same thing about me, that I'm a secret Jew, that I work for Alex Jones, and all this is a 4D chess fraud, and I'm part of the deception. So I understand the frustration. And it's interesting you mentioned the dual citizenship being a problem, because I did an interview or a debate yesterday with an Israeli Zionist named Shlomo Gordon, who loves Alex Jones. He's got all of these entries to the reporter contest that InfoWars is having. He just interviewed Odeid Yanan, who wrote the Greater Israel Plan. But he said the same thing in the debate. He said, "You Americans are dumb. Why do you let Israeli citizens in your government? And why do you get indebted to the Jewish bankers?" Essentially, he said, "You guys need to be smarter and not let us trample all over you." Essentially, he was very candid. Yeah, everybody should check that out that debate.
All right. Well, let's just talk about Q briefly, big picture, and we don't have to talk about Q specifically. But would you agree with me that there is clearly a shadow government apparatus? Certainly, there was under Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Hillary had her 7th floor shadow government at the State Department, which has since been dismantled by Trump, the Trump administration. But would you agree with me that based on the behavior of the FBI, based on the behavior of what we're seeing from Comey and Page and Strzok, and what we're seeing from John Brennan at the CIA, this hatred for the president, would you agree that there is some sort of deep state apparatus aligned against President Trump? Yes or no? And if it's more nuanced than that, share your view.
Well, it is more nuanced, but the simple answer is yes, there is a deep state plot, but there's competing factions in the deep state. So there's the left-wing communist Bolshevik left-wing version of the deep state, and then there's the Zionist right-wing evangelical Republican Adelson side of the deep state. And Alex Jones has actually made this pretty clear on his show, is that the leftist deep state was trying to take us over. So he's teamed up and chose sides with the Zionist deep state and this coup plan with military intelligence out of Florida. He even says it's straight out of Florida. Their logo is a tip of a spear. So people are speculating that Jones also has security that's from Blackwater with Eric Prince. And if you look into the founder of Blackwater, Eric Prince, who is involved with Trump's military, trying to privatize war for more money for them. Also, DynCorp, I believe the guy is Feinberg, is Trump's military advisor now, too. So they're giving all these private companies, these military, taking over the military contracts. And we know how they waste money and commit crimes. But Eric Prince is one of these apocalyptic, just like Pompeo, apocalyptic, tribulation, end times, rapture, obsessed Christian Zionists. And Jones has definitely aligned himself with all those in InfoWars. Years of denying being a Zionist, and everybody saying you're a Zionist shill. And now he's totally cozied up to Trump, who's with the Zionists. He's cozied up next to Breitbart and Rebel Media and everybody in right-wing media who is clearly pro-Zionist. Tommy Robinson.
Well,
Hold on, let me just finish the point. It's interesting that now his message is clearly appealing to Zionist Israelis who love InfoWars and are saying, let's make Israel great. And Trump is keeping promises with the embassy to Adelson and AIPAC. And maybe America is not last, but Israel is definitely coming first in this administration.
Okay, I wanted to ask you here. Now, you mentioned factions. I agree with you. There's different factions at war here. So we can flush out this Brennan CIA faction. But everybody is using this term Zionist as though it covers all the factions. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, or maybe there's nuances within the factions. Because when I think of Zionism, the Zionism that I have been speaking out against for so very long is the Rothschild Zionism, the Rothschild death cult, of which John McCain and Hillary Clinton, the right and the left, two puppets on each side, are a part, have been a part, and would have continued to be a part under a Hillary Clinton administration. An absolute death cult, hell-bent on destroying the sovereignty of this nation, hell-bent on destroying the sovereignty of all EU nations, and hell-bent on a depopulation agenda. Now, I don't see any evidence that Donald Trump is a part of that particular death cult. I see this president standing up against this deep state, this Brennan CIA deep state that I've just described. And so I do think there are factions. But when you say that Trump is surrounded by Zionists, and all the commenters and supporters of you on your site, on your YouTube channel, say that Trump's a Zionist and he's just a puppet of Israel, do you not see a difference between the Rothschild death cult Zionism and whatever Zionist faction Trump may or may not be aligned with?
I think the Rothschilds have full spectrum dominance, and it's a theater, and they control both sides, so neither one of their horses in the race loses. Sure, Evelyn, or one of the Rothschilds, does the $100,000 plate dinners and is best friends with Clinton and funds the left, but also Wilbur Ross is the top Rothschild banker that bailed out Trump in the early 90s when he was billions and billions in debt. And I think Trump was a made man and compromised even before that with his father. And here's one thing I want to say. With Q, we're always talking about you cover a lot of pedophile rings, and the Epstein stuff always comes up. And it's a fact that Trump did travel on Epstein's plane before, and Trump did have the quotes about he likes young girls kind of like I do, and he's a fun guy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, send me I've never ever seen the flight log indicating that Trump was on that Lolita
It's
Express.
not a flight log.
But we have flight logs for Clinton, both Clintons. We have flight logs for all the other people that went there. So, and I keep hearing this charge about Trump went to Epstein's Island, but I've not seen the evidence. And if you have it, I will put it in this video. So you send me the evidence, send me the link, send me the photo, send me whatever you've got, and I'll put that right in this section where we're talking, because I've yet to see it.
Cool. Well, okay, I'll send it to you. And what it's from is there was a prior court case, and it came out in somebody's testimony that Trump had I think from like Epstein's brother or something, said that indeed Trump did travel on Epstein's plane, and this was years ago before.
It's one thing to travel on Epstein's plane, and it's another thing to go to Little St. James in the Caribbean and sacrifice kids. Yeah. So we know that Hillary Clinton went there at least 6 times, specifically to Epstein's Island. Bill Clinton went there more than 20 times, specifically to Epstein's Island. And we know that because of the flight logs. So I keep hearing this charge that Trump is probably a pedophile who sacrifices kids because he went to Epstein's Island. And you say he was on Epstein's plane. Two very different things. So I just want to clear this up because I keep hearing this charge, and I keep being called a troll from people who support this agenda to destroy this president. See, here's the thing, man. I think that these people who leave comments under our interview on your channel are just as caustic and destructive to the pursuit of truth and discourse as the hardcore leftists who have now sparked this walk away movement, because other people who previously identified themselves as liberals are fed up with it. And I don't think that caustic garbage spewed in the comments section when people like you and I are just trying to have a conversation is helpful at all. I think it's absolutely destructive, and it gets me back to this idea of COINTELPRO, Cass Sunstein, divide and conquer.
Well, yeah, the extremists and the most angry people are always the most vocal, so they're the ones you're going to see online. And I always make it very clear that people should, take everything you read in the comments with a grain of salt and not at face value, and know that if it's something just outrageous and ridiculous, very likely it's not even authentic and genuine from a real person. And what else do I say about the comments? It's just, I mean, comments are trash. Everybody knows it.
But you know what's
What else
weird,
is there
man?
to say?
You know what's weird? When I had you on, and you don't agree with everything. You don't think Q. Here's the thing about Q. I just want to say real quickly. I think it's ironic that you and I can both recognize that there is some sort of apparatus at work here that is anti-constitutional, anti-Trump, in my opinion. I think there's a deep state shadow government apparatus that's now so plainly out in the open that anybody with 2 eyes to see and 2 ears to hear can recognize it. You can watch it on CNN unfold all day long, every single day. So we can recognize that. But somehow people think that this president, who took power away from an actual Rothschild puppet, Hillary Clinton, who would have fast-tracked the destruction of this country, people think that he's too stupid, and his administration and the powers that be that wanted him in the White House are too stupid to have some sort of anti-deep state apparatus flowing out, and that's what Q suggests. Anybody that wants to go all day long and say Q's a LARP, Q's fake, go to qproofs.com and educate yourself. So that's all I want to say about Q. I think Q may be an indication that there is a deep state, an intergovernment constitutional counter coup to this public coup that we see all day long against Trump. But as for comments, you mentioned comments. When you were on with me on my show, people were quite cordial in the comments section. Not 90% of the people didn't spew hatred towards you. So there definitely is a difference between your audience and mine, and I wonder why that is. And it's no reflection on you. I think you're a good guy. I think that because you've gone down this Jewish supremacy, it's all the Jews rabbit hole, the people that are coming to your channel hold that view and only that view, and they hate everybody else who won't be fully on board with that view. And again, it reminds me of the hardcore leftists. If you're not fully on board with the LGBTQ, indoctrinate children in the kindergarten, and there is no sexuality, it's a choice, and there's not even genders, it's a choice, I think it's really that extreme.
From what I gathered listening to people and reading the comments myself is I think people are really upset with Q because they're so convinced from the evidence they've seen that Trump is a Zionist pawn. Like, just look, how upsetting is it that Trump's top financier is Sheldon Adelson, who we all know is total Israel firster. He literally funds the IDF. He has his Adelson School for Entrepreneurship right across from a counterterrorism office. And then, guys like John Bolton are the national security advisor who won the Guardian of Zion award. And I think people just see stuff like that, and the Rothschilds bailing them out and Goldman Sachs in there. And they just get upset and they think that Q is it's dangerous because it's like a false hope or it's like a unjustified optimism. And I just wonder, what would it take to have, what would Trump have to do, or what would it take? What other evidence could come out to make you go, Trump really is, confirmed, compromised, 100%? Would it be would war with Iran be enough?
Well, you know what's funny, man? In my very last video, what I was doing is I was essentially responding to the charge that Trump is a puppet. And that's the charge I hear all day coming from this extreme side that I've described, these people that comment on your YouTube videos, or at least under the one that we did. And what I've said is it not okay to report on the good things this president does? Is it not acceptable to report about the things that he's done that are prosperous and good for the American people and for our country? Is it not okay to say that he went to the G7 and pretty much overturned the tables? Is it not okay to say that he wants to have a lawful immigration policy so that our country isn't overrun by people who don't live here or belong here, so that we don't lose our constitutional rights and our Bill of Rights at the voting booth to people who aren't even citizens? Is it not okay to talk about the fact that he signed an anti-human trafficking bill and an anti-online human trafficking bill? And when he signed it, he said, this should have never taken so long to get passed.
We are going to do everything in our power to make sure that traffickers are brought to a swift and firm justice. And I've heard statistics where trafficking in the world is more now than it ever has been, ever in the history of the world.
But it did. It took really far too long, and that's a shame. And he wonders why that is. And it's because a lot of these politicians are up to their eyeballs in pedophilia and human trafficking, and they know about it, and they're covering it up. Is it not okay to talk about the fact that we hear all day long that the Russians interfered in the U.S. election and that John Brennan calls Trump a traitor, and meanwhile the DNC refused to turn over the server to the FBI when requested, and the server is at the crux of the deep state claims of Russian hacking? And Kim.com, meanwhile, has offered Mueller testimony and proof that Seth Rich was the leaker. Is it not okay to report about these things? Because your side, I mean, I shouldn't say your side. You and I are far more aligned than we're separate. But again, the people that are the extremists that follow your stuff don't want us talking about that because they just say Trump's a puppet. So what will it take for you to say, yeah, it's perfectly okay. This guy is doing a good thing for America compared to Hillary Clinton? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, of course, it's okay to cover the good things that Trump does. You know, I voted for Trump. He was definitely the lesser of two evil in my eyes at the time than Hillary. We knew what Hillary was. Trump was more of a wild card. But, and, you know, I like some of the things he said. It seems like he's done some good things. But, you know that the executive director of Trump's presidential campaign committee is Michael Glassner, and he is a former regional director of AIPAC. We have AIPAC running Trump's presidential campaign. And look at Vice President Pence. Google Pence in Israel and see what he says about Israel. He says we have a commitment to Israel. It's like it's Christian Zionist fanaticism. They want so bad to get this temple rebuilt so that the Jewish Antichrist can come and their Jesus can come and destroy them. And then, you know, but I think that the Bible and the Jews have this story. They wrote it, and it's to trick the Christians into helping them rule the world from Jerusalem with the promise that Jesus will return later. That's the only explanation I can see for the Jews and the Christian Zionists to be working together.
Well, it scares the hell out of me, and I tell you what, man, I think that at the end of the day, where I'm willing to give just a little bit here in this conversation is to say that, and this was actually covered in part in my last video, I don't know what truly lies in Donald Trump's heart. I can only judge him by his fruits and his actions, right? I can only judge him by what I perceive to be the content of his character. So when he fetched the hat of the Marine outside of Marine One, the helicopter, when there was the little boy next to him who wanted to give him a hug in the White House, he stands in stark contrast to somebody like Joe Biden who wants to like literally grope little girls. And so I can only judge the president by his actions. And I just think he stands absolutely in stark contrast to that literal witch and Rothschild puppet, a satanic puppet, Hillary Clinton. And, you know, you say that the Rothschilds have full spectrum dominance and they control both sides. Would it not have been easier just to keep the witch in control? All of this stuff would remain covered up. We wouldn't have any of these issues. The mainstream media would be cheerleading her all day long, and it would just be a fast track to the end of our country. And the plan would have just moved ahead beautifully for the Rothschilds and the death cult. So I don't understand why. I guess I don't understand why you think Trump is just the flip side of the same exact coin when he's doing absolutely the opposite of everything that witch would have done.
Well, Trump is definitely a good salesman, and he's charismatic, and he has comedic timing. And I think that's why when he was bailed out in the 90s by the Rothschild bankers, they said that his name and he was worth more to them dead than alive. And when you're bailed out for billions, I think you're really indebted. So, you know, the Rothschilds founded Israel, and Netanyahu worked for Boston Consulting, which is a Rothschild company. So that would explain Trump's, you know, super pro-Zionist stance. And, you know, as far as Hillary and Trump, you may be right. And we got lucky and we got the lesser of two evils and Hillary would have been worse. But it's also possible that the powers that be, Trump is serving their purpose, and that if they would have had a purpose that Hillary would have done better, they would have had her. But Trump is, you know, I mean, look at what the evangelical Christian Zionists are saying about Trump, that he's Cyrus, and he's going to help them rebuild the temple. I mean, Hillary, if Hillary's in, I don't see the temple being built. And that seems like the temple is in Zionism. That's the end game of Zionism. That's the end game of the New World Order, is that Messiah returning and ruling the world with a one world government, one world currency, and one world religion, which the guy I interviewed yesterday, the Zionist Israeli, basically admitted to that's going to be the religious center of the world, and God is going to share his information through Jerusalem, and everybody's going to come and like respect it. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, no, I know, man. That's why I wanted to have you on originally. I want to explore these issues because I don't have cognitive dissonance to the extent that I wouldn't be willing to come to the conclusion at some point that I've been completely duped by Trump. But again, I'm trying to judge the man by his fruits. And I'm seeing so many good things happen. So are people who follow him and follow Q. And we'll just see how this Q thing plays out. Because evidently by November 11th, a lot of this stuff should be just signed, sealed, and delivered. And we should see arrests of high-level criminals. We'll see, though. I don't know, man, because it's very clear to me that this deep state apparatus that I've described, including the mainstream Mockingbird horror media, is completely aligned against this president and continues to push this extremely bogus Russiagate, Putin is the source of all evil on the planet narrative, even though we know it was the DNC who hijacked the election for Hillary, on the record, before a single vote was cast on the DNC, the Democratic side, with the nominations. And they're completely hardcore criminals. I think Seth Rich was killed by these people. I think it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz behind it, probably her and Podesta, probably Clinton too. And that is what the media won't cover. They won't cover the DNC server. They won't cover the 33,000 missing emails. They won't cover the murder of Seth Rich. They won't cover any of it. And it's just so darn
only Fox
discouraging.
News. And you know, Fox News is bigger than all the other medias combined. So in Fox News, I believe it does cover it. So it's more consolidated on the right, but to say all the news, because Fox News is essentially just as bad as all the rest of the media. You'd agree with that, right?
Well, I see the flip side. They share the flip side. They share the information you're not going to see on CNN. So, for instance, I think personally that Tucker Carlson does a pretty darn good job. And in fact, he's done some shows where I'm like, man, I wish I had made that video. Talking about the hardcore crimes of the left, talking about the hardcore crimes of the Clinton Foundation, of Hillary Clinton herself, Benghazi, talking about all the crimes for which she should be tried. And you never, ever, ever, ever see that coming from Wolf Blitzer, who I think was a former AIPAC lobbyist, correct? I mean, so I know what's going on with the mainstream media, and I certainly don't think Fox News is any beacon of truth. I just think that CNN is essentially CIA propaganda. I mean, it's just absolutely the opposite of truth. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to talk about this Jewish supremacy, and I want to talk about this hearing right now going on in Congress about social media filtering and censorship. Now, it's interesting. I was watching the opening statement, and immediately a congressman by the name of Jamie Raskin objected. So I'll show Jamie Raskin's picture here, U.S. Representative for Maryland's 8th Congressional District since 2017. And the whole purpose of this hearing is to root out the fact that social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, are filtering out conservative views. They're filtering out the views of people who are not in lockstep with essentially the CNN type of talking points. Immediately, this Jamie Raskin butts in and objects, and they give him his say. And he says that this whole hearing is bogus because what's really going on at these social media companies is they're trying to filter out fake news. And then he immediately goes to the Russiagate, Putin hacking the election, helping Trump get elected narrative, which is a complete and total lie. So I Googled Jamie Raskin, never heard of him before. And I go down to his personal life. Let me get there here in Wikipedia. Raskin was born in Washington, D.C. on December 13th, 1962, to a Jewish family. The son of progressive activist Marcus Raskin, a former staff aide to President John F. Kennedy on the National Security Council and co-founder of the Institute for Policy Studies. So again, we see lifelong family members continue to be in power within our government. And this is just another example of one of these people who happens to be Jewish, but whose narrative, in my opinion, is completely aligned against the truth.
Funny, you mentioned, families running and then family dynasties and politics. I've been saying a lot recently, and I think that they're going to push Kushner to be run for office as president. I saw Alex Jones say that they're grooming Kushner to be president. I saw him another time hyping him up, like saying how good he was. He majored in government at Harvard, and his family funds Chabad deeply. He goes and visits the Rebbe Schneerson's gravestone, who in Rebbe's all about hastening in the Moshiach. We want the Moshiach now. But you also mentioned Tucker Carlson, and somebody told me that I need to act more like Tucker Carlson in debates and pin people down and not let them wiggle around as much.
Well, let me ask you this here.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that anything we're doing here is based on anti-Semitism. It's just based on facts. We're just exchanging facts. It just happens to be that Jamie Raskin is a Jewish person. Ironically, though, I guess I don't know if that was necessarily a point for your side, because he's essentially one of these people that would stand aligned against Trump's narrative that the DNC server will hold the answers to who really was trying to meddle in the election and who really the hacker or leaker was, and it was Seth Rich. Meanwhile, the mainstream narrative, which I'm sure Raskin supports, is that it was Russia, Russia, Russia. It had nothing to do with Clinton corruption, had nothing to do with DNC corruption. So again, I think you and I have probably more in common than not. So let me just ask you this about the question of Judaism.
Oh, but before you switch, can we talk about social censorship in social media a little more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I didn't want to jump from that yet. Yeah, there's this CNN article that came out a few days ago, titled "Facebook Touts Fight on Fake News but Struggles to Explain Why InfoWars Isn't Banned." So BuzzFeed has one too, trying to ban InfoWars. It's just crazy that these big international media conglomerates like CNN are advocating to ban smaller independent media. And it's almost like they're using Alex Jones to set the precedent, like as a beta test, to start censoring and, burying us in the search results on YouTube. And, also with the Parkland shooting, it's like, all the conspiracy videos are going to be erased. We got to get rid of those. So it's weird that Alex Jones and also Sandy Hook talking about that's justified to ban us online. And I have so many headlines of articles of the ADLs bragging that they're policing all of the internet, they're fighting the hate, and social media is listening and they're taking stuff down. But I have a channel. I'm able to speak freely about all this stuff, but who knows how much they're throttling and governing the accounts. I'm getting like 10,000 views. Maybe if they weren't suppressing it and burying it with algorithms, it would have been 100,000 or 500,000. We will never know. They admit they're doing it to us, and it's just outrageous. You had your video taken down with your interview with Christopher Bolin. A lot of other people are having their channels down, so they are cracking down hard on the internet, spreading information about them.
Yeah. Well, if you get a chance, I don't know, maybe you already have, I would suggest you just take some time and watch some of those hashtag walk away videos on YouTube, because they're really inspiring. I mean, because what I find inspiring about it is that people who I would have formerly considered adversaries to the Constitution and to what I believe is important for our country are now waking up, because the hardcore left is so far gone. I mean, and these people doing these walk-away videos are citing things like, well, I went to a march and these crazy people that I thought I was aligned with were burning signs that said free speech. And they were getting into fights with people there who were peacefully protesting on the opposite side. And so I'm walking away because I'm not aligned with these people, and I think that the left is too far left, because now they want to kill our country, they want to kill free speech, they want to open the borders. What's wrong with a lawful immigration policy? I mean, these are people like you and me who are rational and are coming to the conclusion that the left is now too far left. And I just think it's very inspiring, because to me it means, yes, we the people can still come together. Because that's the one thing we have in common. We have the Bill of Rights in common, right? And I've always said the Second Amendment is the line in the sand, because without the Second Amendment, we lose our First.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, the leftist behavior in the time of Trump has gotten so hysterical that I'm not surprised that some other leftists are distancing themselves from the madness. like the way that they try to stifle free speech by holding signs in front of your sign or ripping up your sign or, grabbing your hat off and throwing a drink in your face. Or sometimes when you try to talk, they'll just like blow whistles or yell in your face. Like this is pure madness and insanity. And I even shared something like that recently and said, how does the other people on the left at these protests not tell these idiots to behave themselves because they're embarrassing the whole leftists and liberals?
Yeah, I know. Well, I think people are waking up because at the end of the day, what do we want? Most Americans just want to be left alone. We want to be able to afford to live in this country, right? We don't want to be taxed to death because our labor, we exchange our labor for their fiat money that they print out of thin air. And we don't want to be taxed to death. We want to be left alone. We want to have our Second Amendment in case somebody breaks into our house and tries to take what's ours. And, as Thomas Jefferson said, the only reason for government is to protect our rights, not to take them away, as they're doing in Canada, as they're doing in the EU, as they're doing all over the world. And the last bastion of defense against this complete Marxist communist fascism is the United States. So if this country falls, all of the dominoes fall. And I think that's where we can all come together. So let me ask you this about...
hold on. Can I add on that point right there? Mm-hmm. America, I feel like the powers that be, the America-Israel alliance, the Zionists in charge of the government, I think they want America to be a big superpower. When Trump got elected, Netanyahu said America is becoming a superpower again. And why they're pushing for America to be powerful? Because that means that Israel becomes powerful too. We're teamed up with all this advanced technology stuff. And Netanyahu is hell-bent on dominating the world in advanced technology. He's already, you just Google Netanyahu technology. It's like they've had this government plan through Talpiot and 8200 to dominate the world of advanced technology.
Well, that would have been the perfect segue because that's what I was going to ask you about, as I said.
Perfect.
Let's talk about Israel and the Talpiot program. I don't know much of anything about it. And then Unit 8200. So let's talk about global technology, dominance, and spying. You know as well as I do, after 9/11, it was Carl Cameron's 4-part series on Fox News that told the truth to the American people about the Israelis spying on FBI agents, spying all over this country, and basically about their involvement in 9/11, up to 9/11, and after 9/11, they all got to go back to Israel. So let's just talk about Israeli spying. Explain the Talpiot program to people.
I'll get to Talpiot, but 9/11, it was Converse and Amdocs, and they were, Israel was in control of all the telephone calls coming in and out. They had their software on all the FAA and the NORAD programs that were running the drills with the Phantom planes to cover up the operation. And the Talpiot program I'm not the best person to talk about this. There's Talpiot groups and Talpiot websites by Joseph Davis, and Brendan O'Connell has pioneered a lot of this information. But essentially, Talpiot and 8200 are Israeli programs where they get the young kids, the best and the brightest, and they kind of teach them advanced science, and then they get them placed throughout Silicon Valley and place them into advanced tech companies. And they just have this agenda of they're dominating cybersecurity. You can just anybody can Google or search engine Israel and tech or cybersecurity, and you will see so many headlines. Netanyahu bragged at the latest APEC conference about their advanced technology and how they're in charge of artificial intelligence, and they're doing automated cars, everything. They just are a technological superpower. Bill Gates is saying it. Elon Musk is saying it. They're saying that pretty soon they're going to be so powerful that the people that want to boycott them with BDS, that they're going to be boycotting the boycotters. And not to mention that the internet is completely policed and controlled by the ADL of B'nai B'rith and largely Jewish-owned social media companies like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Oracle. Yeah. So you get the picture, yeah.
YouTube too. I mean, YouTube, SPLC gets to jump in there with their little puppets and decide what speech is threatening and what speech is dangerous.
Do you still have 2 strikes, by the way?
I do, and you know what, man? Between you and me, I'm probably going to have to save this interview until the middle of August, until one of my strikes goes down. Because here's the problem with this topic, and I think people are right when they say, if you want to know who rules you, look who you can't criticize. So I mean, one more strike and they're going to take my channel down. So
That would be so devastating to you, huh? What would that be like if you got your channel 330,000 subscribers your whole life?
Well, here's what I love about two people in the comments, and this is so ridiculous. We can't trust this guy. 330,000 subscribers. I mean, how in the world would anybody get a channel? That's not even a big channel. First of all, that's 8 to 10 years worth of work. And if you look at other channels like, what is that, Secure Team 10 channel? He talks about UFOs. He does pretty decent UFO videos and hidden technology videos and stuff like that. The guy's got 1.6 million subscribers, and his channel's not nearly as old as mine. So, and look at PewDiePie. What is it? 50 million subscribers. Look at H3H3. 10, 12 million subscribers. When you talk
are one
about
of the biggest, though, that's speaking some hard truths, though.
But isn't it funny when you talk about real topics? When you talk about real politics and real news, it's very hard to reach 1 million subscribers or 2 or 12 million subscribers. It's almost impossible. And I would make the argument that YouTube is very much throttling down my subscriptions, throttling down my view count. The video I just did the other day had like 70,000 views in 24 hours. And then in the next 24 hours, it only got like 8,000 views. I mean, how is that possible? And my subscriber tick, same thing, just slowing to a crawl. So
Me too. I notice it too.
They don't want this information out there, and they try to do everything they can to make sure that our videos aren't coming up in people's feeds. And they unsubscribe people constantly. I'm constantly getting emails. So I just love it when I see comments from trolls who say, "Can't trust this guy. He's a troll. He's a shill. He's paid opposition. 330,000 subscribers. How do you explain that?" Well, you explain that by hard work with more than 1,000 interviews and videos over the past 8 years. That's how you explain it.
Yeah, people, I think, were a little bit too tough on you because, they got to give you credit. The stuff you were saying about Corsi and, having me on your show, reaching out to me, coming on my show and speaking to my audience that is probably going to be hostile. People got to give you credit for, look at this interview we're having right now and all the stuff we're talking about. Like the Aristotle quote, it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. It's crazy with I'll have people on my show, and not even you, but just other people. No matter who you have on, somebody's upset. Somebody says you had this shill on, as if everybody I have on my show I have to agree with on every single thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well,
what do you think of this latest Cohen thing? I'm dying to ask you about that. The Sacha Baron Cohen trolling all of the gun people.
Well, here's the thing. He didn't just troll the gun people, because I just saw, I guess it was maybe a TV show he did. I was watching this last night, as a matter of fact. It came up in a feed that I have on Epix. Have you ever heard of the Epix channel? No. There's a great show on Epix called Get Shorty. It's a pretty good show, and it's based on the Elmore Leonard novel and, of course, the movie Get Shorty. It was a good movie. But last night, up in that Epix feed came a Sacha Baron Cohen show in which he was completely trolling Bernie Sanders. I just think the guy's kind of an a-hole, and who didn't love, what's the name of the movie he did that everybody loved?
Borat.
Yeah, I love Borat, but, I don't think it's probably difficult to troll these people when you can go into a makeup chair for 4 or 5 hours and take on a completely different persona and look like a different person and then lie, because that's what he's doing.
Have a complete cover story. Yeah, a complete fabricated story.
Well, what else would you like to talk about? What's this Unit 8500? Is that what it's called?
Oh, 8200.
Unit 8200?
Oh yeah, let's talk about Talpiot and Control some more. There's an article online called "Israel and the Unexpected New World Order," and it's from Jerusalem Post, I believe. And it's just an opinion, but the guy says that with Israel's advanced cybersecurity, they're dominating the world in it. That they're going to be in charge of all the online transactions, and they're also working to try to have the Belt and Road Initiative, which is like the old Silk Road with Russia and China, a trade passage, with the hub being right in Jerusalem there in Israel. And so they're going to be controlling all financial transactions. They're also trying to get into cryptocurrency. They're doing a crypto shekel, and they're betting on that. Also, Goldman Sachs and Jamie Dimon have been talking about getting into Bitcoin. Wozniak from Apple said that there should be a world cryptocurrency. So this looks like a form of the mark of the beast system, which go to my channel called Third Jewish Temple Prophecy. There's a video there, and watch all of these evangelicals on television, these Christian Zionists, talking about how the Messiah is like ready to appear. They're going to build the temple. They're going to do the sacrifices. And then the Jews openly say, they're interviewed in Israel, and they say, yes, the Goyim will be our servants. They will be our cattle. They will be our slaves. They say it with a smile. And it's so concerning and frustrating, and it's not anti-Semitic to point out their supremacy. I debated a Jewish Zionist that served in the IDF. He was in Jerusalem, and he didn't call me anti-Semitic once, and he told me you were very kind. I didn't get any bit of racism from you, and he doesn't think I'm an anti-Semite. So I don't want to hear any of that, and I don't want to hear any of the I'm a secret Jew either, because I'm not Jewish. Christian family, the Green is not Jewish. But I still get that all the time.
Yeah, of course you do. You know what? They don't want any of us talking about any of this stuff. So I think that's the turd in the punch bowl, and that's the COINTELPRO. Because if I come onto your channel and want to have a discussion, and I'm disparaged by 90% of the people that comment there, and I'm not even sure how many of those people are real people. I mean, it could be the same 10 people under 12 different accounts or whatever, but or 100 different accounts. But I'd imagine a lot of them are real people, but it discourages discourse. And at the end of the day, they don't want this supremacist cult talked about. They don't want Americans waking up to this issue of dual citizens of another nation within the highest powers of our own government. And the best way to prevent people from waking up to that fact is to prevent the discourse.
Even if it's not COINTELPRO, some people are just naturally divisive. And, when you're anonymous online, people tend to say the most extremist things, and it doesn't add to good discourse. And if I don't want people trashing people disrespectfully and unjustified in the comments if that's going on, because then guests won't want to come on my show anymore and talk with me.
Yeah, well, I think that's what people want. I mean, honestly, man, I really think that unless these people are just so polarized, like the far left, the LGBTQ, crew, and the people that worship at the altar of abortion above anything else.
Hey, let me ask you something. Do you need to get that?
No.
I got a good question for you. I wanted to ask.
Go ahead.
Say Trump loses in 2020 or even he wins in 2020 and then he gets out of office and like Q never materializes and turns into something. How are you gonna respond to that, or what is gonna not respond to it? I'm trying to think of the right word. How will you react to that? Like if Q turns out to be nothing?
Well, what I've said about Q and what I've said in this interview is that I think that there is, and I hope this is all true, I think that Trump was essentially asked to run for president. He had no reason to do it.
By military, that's what Alex Jones says. By military out of Florida, Special Operations Command, and Pachenik even said stuff like this. And
so if that's true, if there is a apparatus aligned against this open deep state, this satanic cabal exemplified by Hillary Clinton and the seventh floor shadow government at the State Department. If that's true, and I have reason to believe it is true, awesome. I'm going to report on all the good things Trump is doing, and I'm going to report on some of the Q proofs as I see them. But if this thing all goes away and there are no high-level arrests, then it's essentially game over anyway, isn't it? So I've said for a long time, as it pertains to all this stuff, I've said, I see our cup as half full. Here's why. And under a Hillary presidency, honestly, man, I was thinking about selling our house and trying to get out of this country because I believe that they're running death squads. I believe the Hillary Clinton cartel is running hit teams. And I believe they were taking out people. I think they took out Scalia. I'm 900% sure they took out Seth Rich. And I think that if she had been in the presidency, anybody like me that would have been openly speaking about her crimes, at the very least would have had the YouTube channel for sure taken away. But there's a chance, right, that the loudest voices among us would become targets. And why stay in a country that was going to become a Marxist communist hellhole? And I really think that the plan they had was best described by FBI infiltrator of the Weather Underground, Larry Grathwohl, who said these people want to take control of the U.S. government and they want to introduce a Marxist communist form of government, and anybody that can't be re-educated will be taken out, will be terminated. And by their own account, they said as many as 30 million Americans would have to be butchered. So we've seen that happen in other parts of the world over and over and over again. And I do think that the Rothschilds are the puppet masters of all of it. I just think that it would have been the easiest thing in the world to put the witch in the White House, and they didn't do it. And I keep seeing comments, oh, Rothschilds, they control it all, so if they wanted Hillary in the White House, she'd be there. I don't know, man. I just don't think so. Look at her support. Look at her rallies versus Trump rallies. And who
fills the role of the temple?
I'm just saying, at the very least, his support was real. He was not put in the White House by Russia or Russian hackers or Russian influence on our elections. He was put in the White House by people, by Americans who are fed up and sick and tired of being lied to and betrayed decade after decade after decade. And so that's why he got elected. And still this narrative is that Putin helped him get in. I mean, it's just absolutely bogus. But to answer your question, let's say he doesn't get reelected in a couple years. It's pretty much game over. Like, I don't see anybody who could step into his shoes who's going to fix the problems that need to be fixed. And even if he gets another 4 years, so let's say we have another 5.5, 6 years of Trump, 6.5 years, that's not going to be enough to fix what ails us. So we're in a lot of trouble. And at the end of the day, I think our cup is half full because people are waking up. And if people can come together as opposed to allow these factions to divide and conquer us, we do stand a chance. We do stand a very, very slim chance. But the forces aligned against us are very, very powerful, and I won't deny it.
Well, I agree. Even though I think Trump is a Zionist, I still would rather have him in office than Hillary, just because watching when Trump's campaign, all of the anti-Trump protesters and the way they behaved, they would just be emboldened and like in power, and that would be so scary. Hillary would definitely be cracking down on Americans and trying to open the borders and doing all types of horrible stuff. But if the ultimate goal, and now is the time, and they're ready to build the temple and usher in this new world order from Jerusalem with the advanced technology, Trump is the guy to do it, not Hillary. That's the way I see that. And, Hillary is definitely satanic. We've heard rumors of her being a witch and having Mao things on her Christmas tree. But don't forget that there's also some satanic aspects on Donald Trump's side with Kushner and the Fifth Avenue 666 building and the Chabad connections with the Antichrist figure. So, and, Trump and the Rothschilds, you don't think that him being bailed out back then means that he's indebted to them? And that would explain some of his, allegiance and subservience to Israel?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely could. I just know that, and I see this time and time again, even as it pertains to back in the day when I used to do silver videos and I would mention AppMex. People would say, I'm not buying from AppMex because they settle their banking through JP Morgan, right? I mean, this whole system is run by these international bankers. So specifically as it pertains to Trump and a bailout, I do know that he was very, very much in debt and the Atlanta casino was a disaster, et cetera, and this probably even goes further back than that. So yes, it's very possible that favors were done for him and he now owes favors in return. I just have to continue, for my own sanity, I have to continue to report about the good things he does, and often when I see them, I will report on the bad things he does. And one of those things was this whole Jerusalem issue and the temple, and that's why I reached out to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you should cover the good things he does, and as long as you're having people like me on that can give the opposition point of view, and we can discuss it rationally and respectfully, then people need to give us both credit for that. We don't agree on Trump and politics about everything, but we do agree on more than that we disagree on. So
and at the end,
our talk, yeah.
Well, and at the end of the day, we agree that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and yes, I know it's a corporatized, Washington, D.C., it's a corporation, and our birth certificates are our pledge to the bank, the banker's pledge, we're collateral on the debt. I understand all that. But we still do have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, right? And most Americans cherish it, and most Americans would be willing to fight for it if it comes to that. Can we agree that you as an American and I as an American can come together and value these things, our Bill of Rights being paramount among those things?
Absolutely. And I know that if they try to pass some more of these anti-criticism of Israel or BDS laws, that you will be opposed to those. So
absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely 100%. And I will continue to be vocal about these issues. I'm just not going to proselytize. I'm not going to be, it's not going to be the only issue I cover. And I think that's what people in under your video of our interview take issue with. They think I should be talking about this Jewish supremacy Israel thing ad nauseum 24/7. It's a hornet's nest that makes you a target too, because then suddenly you're an anti-Semite. And so that's, again, and I've talked about this with you, this is what they've done to quell speech and discourse. And the bankers hijacked the whole story. The Rothschilds hijacked the whole story so that they could run cover for themselves and hide under this anti-Semitism label. So you can never criticize Jews, therefore you can never criticize Jewish bankers, you can never criticize the Rothschilds. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think that people are starting to get over the taboo a little bit. Like, just remember, in the grand scheme of things, we've had the internet for just over a decade, where people are actually on it and using it at a critical level. And information is spreading fast. The people that have discernment and want to find it, and which is why they're cracking down so much. I feel so bad for you with your 2 strikes on your life's work. How long have you been doing the channel? 8 years, 10 years, something like that?
Yeah.
To lose that would just be ridiculous. Like, I might go drive down like the girl to YouTube headquarters and want to pay him a visit if they shut down my account, just because I'm speaking the truth.
Right.
And I just can't. And now you can't even put out. You're scared what title you put. You're scared what to say, because it's the chilling effect. They're censoring us, and it's causing us to self-censor to a degree, and it's just outrageous. We have to just be vocal and keep talking about it. The ADL B'nai B'rith is in charge of social media. A Jewish Israeli group is in charge of American social media.
Yeah, and I'll just say it again. I said it at one point in this interview, and it might have been when my phone rang, so that's a part I'd probably edit out, so I'll say it again. I may, because of my 2 strikes, have to save this interview until the middle of August, when one of my strikes falls off, so that I can post this, because this probably will get a strike. And if I post it today or tomorrow, or anytime while I have those 2 strikes, a 3rd strike does exactly what you just said. It takes my channel away. And that's the problem. We can't have conversations. There's certain topics that are very rapidly becoming off limits, and I think this is one of them. So I just wanted to say it there again for the record.
BitChute. How's your BitChute working?
Yeah, BitChute works great too, and there's no maintenance required. As soon as I upload to YouTube, it automatically goes to BitChute.
Oh, awesome! I got to get that set up. Well, yeah. If you just put it up on BitChute and don't even put it on YouTube, and we'll just I can outline that fact that it's not on YouTube, because you'll get your channel shut down for covering this taboo issue, and I think it'll prove an even stronger point than just putting it up.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. All right, well, maybe I'll do that.
Since you got it, yeah.
All right. Well, guys, boy, if you've stuck with us this long, we're about an hour and 5 minutes into this thing.
This is short for me. This is a short one for me, but I'm ready to go too. And I enjoyed the talk.
All right. Well, I appreciate your I think you're a level-headed guy, and I reached out to you because I saw that in your interviews, and I trusted you just from watching your interviews. I think that you are sincere, and I don't think you're a shill or a troll. I don't think you're COINTELPRO, and so I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate us having this conversation, Adam.
Likewise. Yeah, people have been real tough on you, but I've been making it clear that a handled Mossad agent would never have me on to talk about this stuff, and would never come on my show and reach out to me and say the things that you said about Zionists that have come on your show, Corsi, and which, by the way, look into Corsi and CNP, the Council on National Policy. It's a shady think tank group funded by the Rockefellers with all types of Christian Zionist connections. And but yeah, you just you're all right in my book, even though we disagree on Q. We still agree on more than we disagree. And thanks for having me on. And I enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to discussing more things again in the future.
All right. Yeah, my pleasure. And guys, you can check out Adam's channel on YouTube. It's No More News. That's KNOW, More News. And you'll hear some gripping interviews over there, and a lot of great content. And the reason I actually reached out to Adam originally is because of his amazing interviews with Christopher Bolin. Ironically, then I got to interview Christopher, and I got a strike for it, and they deleted the video. All right, Adam, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, Sean. Great talking with you.
You too. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate it. If you'd like to check out real news as I see it 24/7, visit us at SGTreport.com. I believe it truly is the antidote to corporate propaganda and corporate propagandist talking points. So check us out there. Also check out thephaser.com and thelibertymill.com. God bless. Bye-bye.